Chapter 976. Steamed Bun's Vanishing Step. Thwack. The sound of a brick smashing into a skull was clear and crisp. This brick was an expected follow-up in the eyes of Yi Shu, Zhang Yiwei, and other skilled pro players. It was something that should have happened. However, in the eyes of normal players, it was completely unexpected. What they saw was Steamed Bun Invasion being chased all over the map like a cowardly dog. Tang Xing's rhythm had become passive, creating an opening. This was pretty high-end, so it wasn't something just anyone could see. Yet this rookie who was completely unworthy of the pro stage in Zhang Yiwei's eyes not only saw it, but managed to grasp it. It was just that this brick was as inelegant as always, as if he had only managed to achieve it through pure coincidence. Was it a coincidence or? Zhang Yiwei was a little doubtful at first, but that doubt soon disappeared because the brick was only the beginning. After that, Steamed Bun Invasion, who was originally at a disadvantage, unleashed his counterattack. Brawler skills came one after the other, instantly becoming a combo of skills. Tang Xing's sharpshooter's health plummeted. The advantage he had obtained through Gun Fu was soon turned around by this wave of counterattacks. Steady now. Zhang Yiwei secretly wiped away some sweat. Tang Xing wasn't Mysterious Fantasy's captain, and the player Zhang Yiwei gave the highest regard to for nothing. He might not have been able to take the counterattacks, but he quickly steadied himself after that. He threw out a grenade and then jumped backwards with the help of an aerial fire, hoping to create some distance between them. Who would have expected his opponent to be so fast to prevent this? After avoiding the shockwave from the explosion of the grenade, he charged forth with an attack readied, swiftly tossing a fistful of sand at the other. Tang Xing turned his view hurriedly. He could take the damage from sand toss, but not the blind it would induce. Yet just as his view turned, he heard another thwack of a brick becoming intimate with his sharpshooter's head. So fast? Tang Xing was shocked. The brick had come immediately after the sand toss. This was a speed that even Tang Xing could only be ashamed of not having. This seemingly noobish rookie wasn't as simple as he had initially imagined. With the brick smacking into the back of his head, it had the priority of an attack from behind, and the sharpshooter immediately entered a dizzy state. Steamed Bun Invasion's next attack quickly followed, an uppercut launching the sharpshooter up into the air. The dizzy state wore off as soon as the attack hit. His character was already airborne, but Tang Xing didn't panic, turning his view and hoping to continue his offense. The aerial combat skill of Gun Fu was very impressive as well, especially if you managed to combine it with aerial fire. You could create amazing combos and attacks. Tang Xing wasn't skilled enough for that, but he could add a little into his mechanics every now and then. Yet, turning his view all the way round, he was surprised to realize that he hadn't seen Steamed Bun Invasion at all. Where was he? Tang Xing was wondering in surprise, but then took another hit from Steamed Bun Invasion. The shock he felt from this couldn't compare to his shock at getting hit by a few bricks. He was here, but unseen. This technique. This was the legendary vanishing step. Even in the pro circle, this was a skill at the cream of the crop, and very few could master it. Yet now, a rookie that often made rookie mistakes no less, was somehow able to use such a high-end technique. Tang Xing was dumbstruck. Zhang Yiwei, in the audience, was also dumbstruck. Spectators often wouldn't be able to tell when vanishing step was being used. However, Zhang Yiwei had experience and judgment, and he was also very familiar with Tang Xing. Seeing Tang Xing's sharpshooter look around, he had been silently praising the other for being so calm in such a disadvantageous situation, but then he realized that after turning his view, Tang Xing's sharpshooter didn't take any action and seemed to have no intentions of attacking Steamed Bun Invasion. Zhang Yiwei immediately managed to figure out that it wasn't that Tang Xing missed the opportunity, but that he had none in the first place. After turning his view around, he never found Steamed Bun Invasion. Then what could it be? Obviously vanishing step. Alighting on this thought, Zhang Yiwei forgot to close his gaping mouth. He subconsciously glanced at Yi Shu. Yi Shu's smile looked very enigmatic. So Happy really would do anything for victory, huh? Even an expert who could accomplish the high-end technique vanishing step was pretending to be a complete noob. What couldn't they do? Pretending to be a swine to eat a tiger asterisk. Zhang Yiwei's head was filled with this phrase. His mental representation of Steamed Bun Invasion became more and more towering. What was this person's true strength? His original research and understanding seemed to be completely wrong. What should he do? Zhang Yue was extremely anxious, but even if he thought of something now, what could he do? He couldn't communicate with the in-match Tang Xing. Once the match started, everything relied on the player. Tang Xing was obviously also caught completely off guard by this vanishing step, getting beaten to the ground by a round of combos from Steamed Bun Invasion, even taking 2 sweeps. Tang Xing had even forgotten how to use the basic quick recover. Zhang Yue's mood fell further. However, he didn't blame Tang Xing. This unimaginable strength of Bao Rongxing's was something completely out of their expectations. Going up against an expert that had mastered Vanishing Step was a bit too much for Tang Xing. However, Tang Xing soon steadied himself. His stupor just now was because of surprise. He was already used to being intimidated. Mysterious Fantasy was a weak team and he was a player with limited skill. In his 2 years with Mysterious Fantasy, he had been continuously engaging with players whose strength was beyond his. This was the story of Tang Xing's pro career. He was very experienced with fighting stronger opponents. What this experience gave him was mostly calm in facing such perilous situations. If he really could use this to win, then he wouldn't be such a weak player. Seeing Tang Xing steady himself again, Zhang Yue sighed. He knew that this was something brought to Tang Xing by Mysterious Fantasy's situation in the alliance. However, after he sighed, his eyes lit up. The calm that Tang Xing had when going up against experts allowed him to occasionally grasp some opportunities, especially those who were proud and underestimated their opponents, or the young and inexperienced. Bao Rongxing being proud and underestimating them? Of course he hadn't. To win against them, he didn't care about how inelegant he had to be. Was there any pride in that? As for inexperienced, this newbie who had barely experienced any pro matches had pretty much no experience. The experience from peaking in the arena was completely different from pro match experience. Bao Rongxing was a player that Tang Xing could win against. Seeing Tang Xing calm down and engage the other again, Zhang Yue suddenly found a new hope, staring at the match intently. An opening. Zhang Yue's eyes lit up, but it seemed as if Tang Xing hadn't seen it and the opportunity passed. Zhang Yue shook his head and sat up straight. Yet it hadn't been 5 seconds before his heart leapt again. Another opening. Yet Tang Xing still wasn't taking advantage of this opening. Or rather, he didn't even try. What on earth? Zhang Yue couldn't understand. The first opening came and went quickly, so it was normal that Tang Xing wouldn't be able to grasp it. However, the second opening was a big one. There was no reason that Tang Xing wouldn't be able to use it. Could it be? Zhang Yue glanced at Yi Shu on Happy's side. This guy still had the same smile on his face as before. Those 2 openings were traps. Zhang Yue felt enlightened. Pro matches were always like this, full of feints and traps. Everyone was trying to find openings, but had to be careful that the opening they found wasn't actually bait. Realizing that Bao Rongxing wasn't a simple character, then what else could those mistakes be? Did this even need an explanation? Tang Xing was doing the right thing, he had to maintain this calm. Zhang Yue nodded in approval. Thus, the calm Tang Xing continued to stall with Steamed Bun, not daring to be impatient and waiting for a better chance to turn the tables. There was a song that was appropriate for the current situation, Waiting and Seeing, fading away quietly. Tang Xing's sharpshooter's health began to fade quietly, just like that. This was because he never managed to find a better chance to turn the tables. The openings that his opponent gave all seemed fake to him, like there was a label, trap, pasted on it. In addition, he, who had positioned himself in the place of the weaker player in his mind, gave up on attacking directly, and instead went on the defensive, making sure he was as safe and secure as possible. Defending and counter-attacking was the usual strategy of the weak. Unfortunately, this time, his strategy wasn't very appropriate. No matter if it was him or Zhang Yue, they had both deeply misunderstood Steamed Bun. What sort of player was he, really? Their understanding was continuously changing. Currently Tang Xing thought that Steamed Bun was an expert, so he went on the defensive, immediately receiving a round of vicious smacks from Steamed Bun Invasion. Steamed Bun was having so much fun smacking him that his attacks became full of openings. Yet Tang Xing, over here, shook his head telling himself no, these aren't openings. Such ridiculous openings had to be traps. He continued to wait and see. Disregarding his slowly fading health, he himself ended up desolate and heartbroken as well. Zhang Yue was much more experienced than Tang Xing, understanding what was happening after watching for a while. This Bao Rongxing was actually like they had originally thought. He wasn't pretending or anything. Upon being ambushed by Gun Fu, something he couldn't deal with, he ran. While running, he found an opening, so he counterattacked. His counterattack hit, so he made a follow-up combo. This was something every player of Glory should be able to do. As for that vanishing step, it might really have been a coincidence that he moved into Tang Xing's blind spot with a step. Then all the openings now were real? So seeing that Tang Xing was letting all these opportunities slip away, Zhang Yue was anxious to the point where he wanted to stomp his feet. He hoped that Tang Xing could quickly figure out what was happening. However, Tang Xing's mind was set this time. In the end, he never found the opening he wanted and was wiped out by Steam Bun Invasion. When he came down from the stage, his was still wearing a perplexed expression. He felt exactly how he felt against the experts and gods he had faced in the past. Though he had lost, he had done all he could. Zhang Yue wanted to cry. This was no expert. He really was just a rookie. Chapter 977. Main target. Seeing Tang Xing standing calmly in front of him, Zhang Yue didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only let loose a deep sigh. What? Tang Xing still hadn't comprehended what had just happened. You worry too much, Zhang Yue shook his head. He didn't mention how he had been worried too. However, he soon realized it. That guy really is a rookie. You place too much importance on him, Zhang Yue pointed to the stage. Ah, Tang Xing was astonished, but Zhang Yue laughed bitterly and shook his head. He knew what Tang Xing wanted to say. Sit down and just keep watching, Zhang Yue said to Tang Xing. Then, he told the second player, who would be going on stage, be aggressive. Punish him for his mistakes. Tang Xing sat in a daze on the side. He saw his teammate walk onto the stage and fight with Bao Rongxing. He launched an aggressive offense at the very start and won with just a sliver of health left. Tang Xing glanced at his coach in bewilderment. He didn't know what Zhang Yue wanted him to see. Zhang Yue's face was ashen. If the player coming down from the stage had been his player, he would have given him a fierce scolding. You went in at full health to fight someone at half health, yet you almost died. That performance had been too trashy. As for Team Happy's Bao Rongxing, Zhang Yue was also puzzled. This time, he wasn't full of holes like he had been in the previous match. When he fought against this Team Mysterious Fantasy player, he would sometimes make a sudden move, which even an experienced veteran like Zhang Yue couldn't comprehend at all. Has this Bao Rongxing reached a level so high that even I can't understand it? Zhang Yue noticed Tang Xing's confused gaze, but he really couldn't give him an explanation at this moment either. This Bao Rongxing had completely befuddled him. Next up for Team Happy was Tang Ru. She quickly and easily cleaned up that nearly dead Team Mysterious Fantasy player. This player came downstage dejectedly. Zhang Yue wasn't able to scold him for his trash performance. Their third player stood in front of him with fear, waiting for guidance. How could he not feel afraid? He originally thought that they would face God Yi Chu with a numbers advantage and build a psychological advantage, but everything was reversed right now. The other side still had God Yi Chu leisurely sitting there. On stage, there was still a practically full health soft mist. Let alone God Yi Chu, Tang Ru wasn't a player to be taken lightly. Battle Mage and Yi Chu's teammate. Those two phrases F*** put together were terrifying enough. Then, there was Tang Ru herself. Her technical skill was impressive, and her fighting spirit was inextinguishable. Just these 2 points made her a headache to play against. And she was also super beautiful? Don't think that such a stat had no effect during a match. When facing a hot girl, players would sometimes have a mentality that they shouldn't have in a match, like holding back, showing off, teasing, etc. All of these could lead to a tip of the scales. And even if this player could beat her, he would have to face God Yi Chu next. Towards this player, Zhang Yue couldn't say anything but good luck. Did you not hear what Tang Ru said to Team Happy when she was about to go up? She asked Yi Shu, do you need to warm up? Yi Shu just laughed. He didn't reply to her question. As a result, Tang Ru didn't give him an opportunity and killed her nearly dead opponent without fooling around. Not only was Team Mysterious Fantasy able to build any sort of psychological advantage, the confidence of these two formidable opponents caused their third player to utterly collapse. The group arena ended shortly afterwards. Team Happy only needed 2 players to beat all of Team Mysterious Fantasy's players. After this round, Team Happy had won all 5 points. The situation had now become a you die or I die scenario. The outcome of the following team competition wouldn't only decide the winner of this match, but who would make it out of groups. At this point, it was impossible for Team Happy and Team Mysterious Fantasy to both make it out. The loser of this team competition would have their journey cut short. The notion spreading around before the match of how Team Happy and Team Mysterious Fantasy would have a tacit agreement to send Team Traitor out of groups had now been completely dispelled. But then again, in this group with 5 teams, one team would have no opponent to play against every round, so it was easy for a hole to appear. For example, in this round, if Team Happy and Team Mysterious Fantasy really did make a tacit agreement before, there was nothing Team Traitor could do. It didn't happen in the end. Both teams were fighting to the death, but at this point, Team Happy's psychological advantage over Team Mysterious Fantasy was quite obvious. The team competition had been the section of the match that they needed to win from the very start. They had mentally prepared themselves for this a long time ago. However, Team Mysterious Fantasy thought that they could end this battle in the individual competition or group arena, yet the life of death match had dragged onto the team competition. It wasn't like they hadn't considered the possibility of this development, but there was no way they would be as certain as Team Happy. The pressure on them suddenly multiplied. The entire team was quiet. Even Zhang Yiwei couldn't squeeze out a smile. In the end, he also thought that their defeat was imminent. But he knew that he was the pillar of their team. At this moment, he could not collapse no matter what. Even if he was only pretending, he had to show his unwaverable confidence in the team. Zhang Yiwei looked at everyone in Team Mysterious Fantasy one by one. He noted everyone's expression. He didn't immediately say anything. Encouragement needed to be done at the right time. The situation and the words mattered. Zhang Yiwei had been a coach for 2 years and was quite proficient at his job. He gave the players some time. After digesting their current situation, Zhang Yiwei clapped to get everyone's attention. Then, he began admonishing them. Did we already lose? How come I seem to remember that there's still 5 points waiting to be taken? We didn't perform as well as expected in the individual competitions, but that doesn't mean we need to be discouraged. Next up, it's time for us to show our team's strength. Do I need to repeat what our advantages are? We are Team Mysterious Fantasy. We've always been challenging opponents far greater than ourselves, but when did we ever fear them? Everyone has been too relaxed because of the Challenger League. Have you guys forgotten about the courage that you've always had? That's perfect then. It's time to summon up that courage. Happy is very strong? What about Excellent Era? Such a powerful opponent is waiting for us in the later stages. If we get discouraged, how are we going to challenge Excellent Era? How are we going to make it back to the Alliance? We can lose, but no team can scare us. We came here to challenge Excellent Era. We're not even scared of Excellent Era. So does Happy count for anything? Forget about those previous losses. The match has only just begun. Focus. Go on stage and beat Happy. Yes. The players in Team Mysterious Fantasy heard Zhang Yiwei's speech and their spirits instantly surged. These players were about to go on stage. Under their captain Tang Xing's lead, they lay in wait. I hope you guys haven't forgotten our arrangements for the team competition, Zhang Yiwei said. Of course, the team competition players nodded their heads. They looked towards Happy at Happy's cleric, and Wen Yi. For Team Mysterious Fantasy, he was their target. The experienced Zhang Yiwei saw through the weaknesses in Wen Yi, so he formulated a strategy targeting their healer. Players on both sides, get ready to go on stage. When it was about time, the referee called out to the players. Go, beat them. Zhang Yiwei and the other players, who wouldn't be going up, cheered on their 6 players. On Team Happy's side, Yi Shu personally led the team onto the stage. He heard Zhang Yiwei's shout and even turned his head to smile at him. Zhan Wenyi was thinking about some way to respond to Yi Shu's smile, when his 6 players turned their heads to look at him. They were in utter disbelief. What's wrong? Zhang Yiwei didn't know what had happened. He saw the 6 turn around and followed their gazes. And Wenyi was still sitting in Team Happy's seats. Zhang Yiwei was shocked. He hastily turned to look at Happy's players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Yes, 6. Zhang Yiwei counted again and confirmed it. Team Happy had sent out 6 players in this team competition, but they actually weren't bringing a healer? The team competition hadn't even begun yet, but just looking at the players sent out, Zhang Yue was already dumbstruck. It was only until the players next to him called out to him did he wake up. He saw that the referee was urging the 6 players to hurry up and go on stage. They were currently walking slowly onto the stage, stalling for time. They turned their heads every 3 steps, looking hopefully at him. And when Yi wouldn't actually be playing in the team competition. Their original plan had been completely messed up. They were hoping that their coach would hurry and give them some sort of instruction. Zhang Yue understood. He wasn't allowed to say much right now though. He could only point towards Happy and say, "Steamed bun." The 6 players heard his words and nodded their heads. Steamed bun, that was obviously steamed bun invasion. The 2 sides went to their respective seats. They swiped their cards and logged into the game. When they entered the competition interface, the 6 players saw the other side's arrangements and suddenly wanted to cry. And Wen Yi had been their main target, but Wen Yi didn't go on stage. Steamed Bun became their new target, but the other side put Steamed Bun as their 6th player. At this point, they couldn't look for their coach for any guidance anymore. For a moment, the 6 players didn't know what to do. Zhang Yue saw the display from the stream and also froze. He could already figure out what his 6 players on stage were thinking, but there was nothing they could do because there were still no rules in the alliance regarding coaches. According to the rules, his usage as a coach in a match was very limited. He could only study the opponents and make some arrangements before the match. As soon as the match started, the players could only rely on themselves. In the current Glory competitive scene, coaches changing their plan strategy right before the match wasn't a thing, so when an unexpected situation occurred, Zhang Yue could only feel powerless. As a result, he usually made a few backup plans, but this time, he could never have imagined that the other side would play the team competition without a healer. Chapter 978. Flimsy Tactics. Hello friends, let's return back to the stage. Happy vs Mysterious Fantasy. This match will determine who will be eliminated during this knockout tournament. On the screen now is a list of the players who will be going on stage from Team Happy. Looking at this list, I'm sure those who have been paying attention to Team Happy must have realized something. After the ad break, the broadcast returned to the competition stage, and the commentator incessantly started talking. Yes, Happy's team composition doesn't have a healer. What a bold move. To dare to make such a move in a life and death battle, we have no choice but to recognize Happy's courage. I think this arrangement is surely a huge surprise to Mysterious Fantasy. I hope that their plans won't be thrown into disorder because of this. It wasn't good for the commentator to be biased towards one side, so after admiring Happy, he gave his blessings to Mysterious Fantasy to make up for it. Unfortunately, the commentator's remark was spot on. Team Mysterious Fantasy's plans had been completely thrown into disarray because of Team Happy's surprise move. After the 5-second countdown, the battle began. Zhang Yue didn't want to look at the screen. Happy's unexpected team composition had disrupted his arrangements. As a result, his value as a coach couldn't be shown in this team competition. Everything depended on the players on stage to resolve. And for Team Mysterious Fantasy, without the guidance from their coach, they had undoubtedly lost their main pillar of support. When the battle began, Team Happy's 5 leading players rushed towards Team Mysterious Fantasy's location like wolves. The players on Team Mysterious Fantasy still hadn't moved yet. They were currently discussing what to do in the team chat. And Wen Yi's little cold hands wasn't there. Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't there either. Who should they target among Team Happy's 5 players? Yi Shu, Sun Jeping, Wei Chen? Even if these 3 were gods of the past, they were still towering mountains compared to them. Chao Yifan. He had come from Team Tiny Herb. Even though he didn't seem to have made any accomplishments in Team Tiny Herb, just being accepted into Team Tiny Herb made him appear more precious than them. Being a part of Team Mysterious Fantasy truly meant that they were the bottom rung of the pro scene. Getting noticed by a top team like Team Tiny Herb was only a dream to them. Besides these 4, there was only Tang Ru left. She was an extremely beautiful girl. They had cast their glances on her not just a few times off stage, but right now, in this life and death battle, they placed their attitudes towards beauties aside. Even though Tang Ru wasn't someone easily provoked, compared to those 4, her background seemed the least impressive. No? If you had to pick a persimmon, pick a soft one. Tang Ru was soon recognized as their new main target. Afterwards, the Team Mysterious Fantasy players finally shifted into formation. After confirming their target, it wasn't hard to execute their practice tactics. Zhang Yue saw his players begin to move. Every character was methodically arranged. It looked like they had a clear plan in mind. What were they planning on doing? Zhang Yue could no longer remain calm. He anxiously stood up, staring at the screen. The players on both sides began their first exchange. Team Happy was in an X formation. Sun Ziping's Another Summer of Sleep and Tang Ru's Soft Mist stood at the front. Wei Chen's Windward formation and Chao Yifan's 1-inch Ash stood at the back. Yishu's Lord Grim was positioned in the middle. It was a very ordinary and unsurprising formation. After Team Mysterious Fantasy saw Team Happy's formation, they quickly adjusted their formation. They shifted towards their main target, Soft Mist. Their captain, Tang Xin, quickly spoke in the team channel, Heavenly Lightning Earth and Fire. Heroic Leap to split them apart. Cloud Grasping Fist to grab her. Team Mysterious Fantasy's first 5 players consisted of a sharpshooter, elementalist, knight, chi master, and paladin. 2 long-range defensive classes, 1 mid-ranged class, 1 close-range defensive knight, and 1 healer and defensive paladin. The cautiousness of a weak team was completely revealed by their team composition. This team composition didn't have much close combat ability. It was clearly because Team Mysterious Fantasy didn't dare to directly confront other teams. Because of this, they needed to use other methods to obtain victory. After their captain finished giving out instructions, the 5 Mysterious Fantasy players rushed towards Happy. They took the initiative and launched the first attack. Too impatient, Zhang Yue stomped his feet in worry. He had brought this team up with his own hands. As soon as he saw their formation, he could already see through their intentions. However, attacking first wasn't their Team Mysterious Fantasy's strength. What's more, their team composition didn't have powerful surprise attack capabilities. It had to be said that the strength of Team Mysterious Fantasy's players was limited. In terms of tactics, because of the existence of their coach Zhang Yue, the players were used to listening to his orders. Their ability to create their own strategies became even weaker. The thinking behind their plan had some clear problems. How could such crude tactics not be cleaned up by Team Happy? Team Happy had Yishu, the most senior of the 4 master tacticians. Numerous glory tactics had been invented by him. Zhang Yue himself didn't dare to say he was more capable at tactics than Yishu. Right now, these Team Mysterious Fantasy players, who were used to relying on someone else's tactics, went up to battle against Yishu. A dull gray once again consumed Zhang Yue's heart. But Team Mysterious Fantasy's players couldn't feel their coach's current emotions. They had already started their attacks. The Elementalist cast a Heavenly Lightning Earth and Fire. The Knight used Heroic Leap, directly splitting the line between Soft Mist and Lord Grim to separate Soft Mist from the rest of her allies. Bang! A gunshot sounded. Mysterious Fantasy's Elementalist hadn't noticed at all. Lord Grim's attack forced him to cancel his spell cast. The Knight had already rushed forward with Heroic Leap, but while he was still in the air, he was suspended where he was. Soft Mist's spear was raised high in the air, stabbing him and making him appear like a piece of clothing hung out to dry. That was just the visual impression in that instant. Circle Swing didn't give any time to pose for a picture. As soon as the spear struck him, he was flung down without any delay. At this moment, Mysterious Fantasy's Chi Master had successfully executed Cloud Grasping Fist and dragged her towards their knight. The others weren't able to protect her. This grab struck, and Soft Mist was dragged over. The knight pierced by her spear, as well as the remaining arc of the Circle Swing, were pulled over to the Chi Master as well. The Chi Master crashed into the ground, struck by his own allied knight, who had been smashed down by Circle Swing. The crowd erupted with laughter. That scene was too funny. The Chi Master using Cloud Grasping Fist reaped what he had sown. In the first exchange alone, 2 players from Team Mysterious Fantasy had been knocked into the ground. Their opening move was going extremely poorly. Tang Ru's Soft Mist was full of life though. She didn't panic after being pulled into the enemy ranks by Cloud Grasping First. Instead, she took the opportunity to attack. The 2 on the ground hadn't gotten up yet, and the sharpshooter and paladin were already being forced back by her. They had originally planned on grabbing Soft Mist and killing her, but after she was grabbed, they were the ones being forced into helplessness. Team Mysterious Fantasy's first wave of attacks looked very embarrassing. Tang Xin's sharpshooter stepped back 5 steps. It was the distance that he was most familiar with. Following afterwards, he was just about to unleash his gun fu, when a hexagram prison suddenly erupted from the ground. Tang Xin hastily jumped out of the way in fright. Windward Formation's hexagram prison had been avoided, but Lord Grimm's anti-tank missiles were still flying towards him. Tang Xin wanted to dodge again, but Soft Mist had already reached him. Not only was their target Soft Mist not beaten black and blue, she became the dagger that was lodged in the chink of their armor. At this moment, Tang Xin deeply felt like his plans had been terrible. The other side took advantage of it and turned the tides in their favor. Tang Xin's sharpshooter was pressed on both sides and had no path for retreat. Fortunately, he had teammates to help him. The knight got back up and rushed over with a shield strike. Soft Mist had no choice but to dodge it. The Chi Master punched and sent a Chi wave flying over. But then, he saw a figure descending from the sky. Another summer of sleep had landed with a collapsing mountain. His body ate the Chi wave, and his sword slashed fiercely towards the knight. The knight raised his shield to block it, and a loud muffled sound erupted. While making his declaration, another fierce character from Team Happy had approached. Sun Ziping's experience was far richer than Tang Ru's. Compared to Tang Ru, he knew more clearly how to make things difficult for Team Mysterious Fantasy. His first strike was blocked by the shield. He didn't mind. He began ferociously slamming down on the knight's shield, forcing the knight to take step after step backwards. The shield could greatly reduce knockback effects. However, it couldn't completely resist Sun Ziping's frenzy. The knockback from skillfully linked attacks forcibly broke through what the shield could take. The knight continued to be forced back, giving Soft Mist a new path to maneuver around in. With a dragon breaks the ranks, Soft Mist sent the Chi Master flying far away. Tang Ru didn't have her Soft Mist chase after him. She turned around and began attacking the knight, along with Sun Ziping. That knight was unable to get away from Sun Ziping. He could only watch helplessly as Soft Mist attacked. He could only hope that his teammates could break through and rescue him. However, when he turned his head to look, their elementalist was jumping like a rabbit under Lord Grimm's gunfire, and their team's sharpshooter was being suppressed by Windward Formation's long-ranged curses. Their sharpshooter wouldn't be able to escape for a while. Warlock attacks weren't as simple as just damage. Many of their skills were catered towards control. As for their Chi Master, he was still trying to get up after being sent flying away by Soft Mist's dragon break the ranks. As for their paladin? Oh, their paladin was still there. Furthermore, another summer of sleep and Soft Mist were pushing him towards his own paladin. They wanted to get rid of both him and the paladin all at once. Chapter 979. The Greatest Weakness. Happy's playstyle surprised even the coach, Zhang Yiwei, let alone the Mysterious Fantasy players on stage. They dared to fight openly like this without even bringing a healer? What kind of arrogance and confidence was this? However, when they saw characters Another Summer of Sleep and Soft Mist push their knight towards their paladin, Zhang Yiwei reacted at once. – Happy still had a strategic target. Their first target was still the healer. This was a very traditional, standard, and unsurprising fighting style. However, by spreading out, scattering Mysterious Fantasy's formation, and then switching targets, the thought process behind their tactics were much more elaborate and ambiguous. In comparison, the way that Team Mysterious Fantasy's characters started to cut in by throwing 3 skills at Soft Mist was straightforward, rough, and crude. Happy's fighting style was rich in variation, so when their true intentions were revealed, it was very likely that it was already too late for the opponent to stop them. This match was exactly like that. Mysterious Fantasy's knight served as Happy's tactical cover. After pushing him for some distance, Another Summer of Sleep and Soft Mist immediately ditched him. They rushed towards the paladin, who was not far from the knight, in unison. Mysterious Fantasy's paladin had been actively healing the entire team. The knight became his main target, after being pincered between 2 people. However, the 2 characters that had been pincer attacking the knight in the previous second had now turned the points of their weapons towards him. The paladin obviously wouldn't stand still to fight back and resist head-on. However, when he turned around, Chow Yifan's 1-inch ash had managed to sneak behind him. He didn't know when that had happened. An ice boundary was cast and it trapped the paladin within it. Smaller boundaries were connected by larger boundaries. While the paladin was suppressed, another summer of sleep and soft mist arrived and started their wave of attacks. The paladin had nowhere to go, so he could only use his skills head-on. First, he used a holy shield technique to protect him from the front, then a life activation to immediately recover some of his health. This was followed by Angel's Might, which put the paladin at the center as a ray of light stretched out in 360 degrees, so it not only delivered damage to targets within the lit area, but it would also create a strong knockback effect, which allowed him to be immune to knockdowns. Neither Sun Jeping nor Tang Ru's classes had no way of negating Angel's Might's knockback effect, but both of them did their best. Although Angel's Might had a knockback effect, but as an interrupt skill, it would only be effective towards skills that required the user to be immobile while casting. In comparison to other interrupt skills, it was fairly inferior when compared to the types of grabs. Another Summer of Sleep wasn't able to stop himself from sliding back. He carried his greatsword on his back, and his surroundings turned red. The greatsword boiled like blood, as it continued to swell and get bigger. When his sword was drawn down, the blood erupted and cloud of bloody mist immediately spread out. This was the big, level 70 skill of the Berserker, Crimson Storm. As for Soft Mist, her spear transformed into a dragon when she swung it. Although she was retreating, her transformed spear's magical battle aura surged ahead. Its blast managed to strike the paladin. Although Angel's Might managed to force another Summer of Sleep and Soft Mist back, it couldn't avoid either of the two's big moves. The summoned Holy Shield technique couldn't resist the two skills at all. The shield was blasted to bits, and the erupting, boiling red color of the magical battle aura completely swallowed up the poor paladin in an instant. After Chow Yifan's 1-inch ash was finished with his support as a phantom demon, he didn't stand around and do nothing. He attacked with his katana to help dish out damage. Too fierce. Happy's response is truly fierce. We need to remember that they didn't bring a healer. When faced with the paladin's Angel's Might, they continue to deal damage despite having to bear the damage taken, the broadcast commentator exclaimed unstoppingly. This mysterious fantasy player is in danger. He's in between Happy's pincer attacks, so he can only pray for his teammates to arrive quickly to save him. Now, where are his teammates? The broadcast screen switched to the other members of Mysterious Fantasy. The knight had been heavily targeted by another Summer of Sleep and Soft Mist, but now it was his turn to proactively intercept the two. The Chi Master, who had been blasted away, was now rushing forward. Since he had mid-ranged attacks, he punched out a sky-piercing strike towards Soft Mist and another Summer of Sleep. However, with a flicker, another Summer of Sleep circled around to Soft Mist's front. He used his body to take on Chi Master's sky-piercing strike. Soft Mist wasn't interrupted by the attack, so she continued to attack the paladin furiously. The paladin's Angel's Might wasn't able to turn the tides. After giving himself 2 instant and strong heals, he used Firmwill to boost his defense. He then spun his view around in an attempt to see if any of his teammates could quickly come to his rescue. Unfortunately, before he could wait for his teammates' attacks to arrive, Yishu's Lord Grim and Wei Chen's Windward Formation had found some openings to throw some skills his way. The paladin could only rely on his class-powerful defense to stay alive. Finally, the knight from his team rushed to his side and activated Holy Punishment. Tang Ru's Soft Mist had to avoid it. The moment she moved aside, Sun Jeping appeared with his greatsword and parried the Holy Punishment head-on. Using an attack to parry Holy Punishment, the broadcast commentator uttered in disbelief. Luckily, the audience could only hear his voice, and not see his face. Holy Punishment's attacking rhythm was controlled by the controller, so it didn't have a set rhythm. In addition, its damage could layer on top of another and increase. The commentator didn't know whether using an attack to parry such a skill was courageous or insane. The clanging of weapons between the two characters rang incessantly. Mysterious Fantasy's knight couldn't really believe what was happening. Someone actually dared to use pure technical skill to take on Holy Punishment. Was he being looked down on? Even a clay person had a bit of temper asterisk. Such an abnormal scene was happening to him. His self-esteem took a lot of damage. He started to focus on Holy Punishment while disregarding everything else. All in all, it was difficult to hold back Holy Punishment with just technical skill in the first place. After Sun Ziping's another summer of sleep had parried for a bit, he couldn't keep it up after the opponent increased his speed. Normal attacks couldn't parry holy punishment, so he had to counter it with skills. However, all skills would have a cooldown time, so while holy punishment wouldn't have this problem, another summer of sleep eventually used up all of his skills. When he could only use normal attacks to counter it, Mysterious Fantasy's knight felt really at ease, and attacked again and again. The numerous consecutive attacks pushed another summer of sleep to the point that another summer of sleep couldn't hold on any longer. "You idiot. Watch where you are going." However, the knight's oppressive attacks towards Sun Ziping angered Zhang Yue to the point that he cursed out loud. The knight furiously pursued another summer of sleep with attacks, and gave up the chance to protect the paladin, who was left there by himself. What other possibilities were there, for an exposed healer, except to get beaten up? The broadcast followed the knight's crazy holy punishment, but the position he had left was even more exciting. Soft Mist's battle spear turned and stabbed fiercely towards the paladin. Although Mysterious Fantasy's Chi Master picked out a chance to do something, it wasn't a class that specialized in fighting at close distances. The advantage in mid-range attacks and support couldn't save the paladin. In Mysterious Fantasy, the one that had the best chance in saving the healer was the knight, but this guy had been led away by Sun Ziping's forceful response. When the broadcast switched back to this scene, the commentator suddenly came to realize the truth. Amid the courageousness in Sun Ziping's attacks, there was also a devious trick. The knight player only managed to realize what happened after the holy punishment had finished. He hurriedly tried to turn back to save the healer, but how could Sun Ziping let him off the hook so easily? He pursued the knight with a chain of wild slashes. All the advantages he gained from the holy punishment was taken away after a few attacks. They had a healer with them, so theoretically, exchanging blood shouldn't be a disadvantage. However, the problem was that they were about to lose their healer. Lord Grim and Windward Formation on the other side exchanged positions. Under the coverage of Lord Grim, Windward Formation managed to summon Death's Door. Players who wanted to step ahead had to consider again. Being captured by Death's Door couldn't be countered by mere controls. At least, low-ranked pro players in the league like the ones in Mysterious Fantasy didn't have this confidence. The crucial issue of saving the healer was changed into breaking Death's Door. Since Death's Door's caster was under the coverage of Lord Grim, members of Mysterious Fantasy all switched their firepower that way. Zhang Yue once again sighed. He couldn't even curse. It could clearly be seen just how little hope he had left. Happy was leading his team by the nose. The disparity between the two teams in terms of tactics already put in Zhang Yue in despair. In his heart, he faintly felt like even if Happy hadn't come out with something unexpected leading to his plans being ruined, even if his tactical arrangement had been in place, the other side had Yishu leading Team Happy, while he himself was off stage unable to do anything. Team Mysterious Fantasy would have fallen either way. He continued to look for holes in Team Happy. Sometimes it was because the healing wasn't enough. Sometimes it was because Steamed Bun was a novice. However, Team Mysterious Fantasy's biggest weakness had been grasped by the other side. Coach. For Team Mysterious Fantasy, their wins were because of the coach, their losses were also because of the coach. Because of the difficulty in coordinating with the team, the effectiveness in coaching was limited. Mid-match, the coach's plans might fail. It was also possible that unexpected things could lead to changes in the situation. In a normal team, the team captain would make immediately adjustments. However, Team Mysterious Fantasy depended on their coach. Their tactics would immediately crash down. Their defeat was simply logical. Zhang Yue, who had been uneasy and nervous the entire time, calmed down at this moment. He already knew what the results would be. No matter if the outcome was good or bad, it at least gave him a peace of mind. Team Mysterious Fantasy's journey stopped here. Zhang Yue was upset. If he hadn't overthought things, if they had won one more point than Team Traitor, if they had maintained a qualifying spot the entire time. Unfortunately, it was all too late. Team Mysterious Fantasy would be eliminated. Chapter 980. New competitive format. Glory. When the team competition was replaced by this massive word, Zhang Yue had completely collapsed on his seat. Although he had seen the lack of initiative Mysterious Fantasy had during the team competition and guessed the results, with the match still ongoing, he still bore hope for a miracle in his heart. It was only until now that Zhang Yue's hopes finally turned to ashes. Excellent Era was in this season's Challenger League, which was quite the blow for those who wanted to return to the Pro League. In truth, Mysterious Fantasy had long since been prepared for an extra year in the Challenger League. Now, however, they had been eliminated without even meeting Excellent Era. That was inexcusable. Zhang Yue was the true core of Team Mysterious Fantasy. In successes, he contributed the most; in failures, he couldn't escape the responsibility, and this match had completely revealed to him how little control coaches like him had over the situation under the current rules. Zhang Yue felt that his future was even bleaker than Mysterious Fantasies. The players of both teams came down from the stage one by one. Mysterious Fantasies players gathered around of their own volition, yet their coach didn't say a word, sitting there so silently, it was scary. They didn't dare make any noise either, just standing there with their heads bowed, quietly waiting. Yet, next to them, laughter and celebration filled Happy's player stands. At the same time, in the audience, the few Happy fans as well as the Yichu fans were cheering in excitement. In the media seating area, Chang Xian was almost jumping in joy. They won! Happy won, Brother Cao. There were quite a few reporters around them, so Chang Xian stayed discreet, simply pulling on Cao Guangcheng, who sat next to him, and sharing his joy. Hey, not bad. Cao Guangcheng squeezed out a smile. He was surprised that Happy had really managed to obtain such a one-sided victory and guarantee Mysterious Fantasy's elimination. Could this Happy really pose a threat to Excellent Era? Cao Guangcheng couldn't help the anxiety in his heart. However, looking at his fellow reporters, he found that they were rather happy that Happy was advancing to the next round. It was just that they were happy for a different reason. Chang Xian was happy because he had feelings for Happy and hoped that this team could do better and walk further. As for the other reporters, they were hoping for a drama-filled clash between Yichu and Excellent Era, so none of them wanted Happy to be eliminated too early. 10-0, Happy eventually defeated Mysterious Fantasy with such a huge lead. This result was probably very unexpected to most people, right? However, you have to admit that this is an appropriate conclusion to this round. Team Happy is the biggest surprise of the season for the Challenger League, and two ex-pro teams have already fell to them. Who knows what other surprises they'll bring us in the following events? Let us wait and see. The commentator for the broadcast was finishing up on his commentary for the match. The other 7 matches had either already finished or were nearing their end. The final rankings of each group would be decided today, and on the electronic screen, facing 4 different directions, the rankings for each group was shown on each on. Those groups that still had a chance were at their most nervous, but this had nothing to do with Mysterious Fantasy anymore. After standing around and staring at their coach for a while, they finally heard their coach speak. Let's go. Zhang Yue stood, calmly calling his team over. Admonishment? That would do nothing now. Encouragement? That could wait until after he secured his own future. They hadn't even advanced past the group matches. Zhang Yue was very clear that this wouldn't satisfy their boss. Especially since this match had exposed a lot of problems. There was a big question mark on if he could still stand with these team members in Team Mysterious Fantasy. Team Mysterious Fantasy left silently like that, and not many people noticed the departure of these failures. The audience was all watching the remaining matches while keeping an eye on the rankings. Group B was the first group to settle on its advancing teams. Happy was first and Trader was second. The second group was Group D. Excellent Era's first place in this group had been set in stone from the beginning and ended up with a full 40 points, showing off Excellent Era's absolute advantage in the Challenger League. Everyone in this group could only hope for second. As the last 2 matches ended, Group D's second advancing team was decided, a team called the Limit of Heat. The third group that had its advancing teams decided was Group A. J Dynasty obtained first with a small lead, and the second team was one called Scorching Fields. And this team, according to the rules of the Challenger League, would be Happy's next opponent. Group C's matches still hadn't finished, but not many people cared. Their half had Excellent Era, and no one believed anything that happened in this group would affect Excellent Era's dominance. The 8 quarter-finalists were all decided on this night, and the next round's match arrangement would be automatically generated. The following matches for the Challenger League would continue in a knockout-style best-of-1 game with no difference in home or away. The map would be decided by the hosting party, all made by the Glory Game Company specially for the following games. With a match every week, the champions would be decided in 3 weeks. As for the competitive format, it would go by an entirely new format which would be used for the first time ever in the Challenger League offline tournament. The new format decreased the 3 parts of the game to 2. The individual matches would be removed, leaving only the group arena and team competition. However, the group arena would be changed from 3-on-3 to 5-on-5. The scoring system would be the all-new headcount scoring system. For example, if, in the group arena, someone was overwhelming enough to wipe out all 5 members of the other team, they would get 5 points. If 2 people managed to destroy all 5, they would get 4 points, 3 people and they'd obtain 3 points, 4 people and they'd get 2, 5 people and they'd get 1. If all 5 people went up and weren't able to defeat the other team, they would lose and would get no points. The team competition would be the same. The points depended on how many people were left on your side, a point per person. The final score would be the total of the 2. Because of the change in the scoring system, the format was all too new. After the Alliance leaked this, experts immediately began pointing out that this would lead to a revolution in glory tactics. As opposed to simply pursuing the final victory, players needed to consider a lot more under this format. The game would become a lot more complicated and there would be much more to it. For the analysts who wouldn't be hurting their waist when they stood and talked, they admired the new rules. However, for the actual participants, the pros, changing their habits would be something extremely annoying. So it didn't matter if the change made things better or worse, they wouldn't welcome it no matter what. It was just that when it made things worse, they could reasonably complain about it, but this sort of format where they couldn't pick out any major flaws, they could only go and get used to it. The Alliance planned to first test it out in the Challenger League to see how things went. If it was alright, they'd implement it in the Pro League playoffs. As for if the regular season needed changing or not, they'd have to do some more research. The new competitive format wasn't some sort of big reveal for everyone. When they started looking into it, the Alliance had gone to the clubs to see their opinions on it, as to avoid making some absurd rules and causing a riot. Being able to share this plan of theirs meant that the clubs wouldn't have anything to say against it. As for the participants of the Challenger League, they were insignificant and powerless and could only go along with it. Because of the addition of the headcount scoring system, the new format would be more complicated as experts had analyzed. But no matter how complicated the competition was, they could still make certain of their victory. If you won both the group arena and the team competition, then there was no need to take the headcount into account when deciding a victor. The headcount would only be necessary if the victors of the group arena and team competition were different. Those who thought the headcount scoring system was only for deciding a victor under these circumstances were too naive. If a victor couldn't be decided, they could add another match. The Alliance welcomed more matches for more spectators. Otherwise, why would they have 2 rounds? They'd just have each match be a team competition and leave it at that, simple. Not doing that was naturally because one-on-one duels were an irreplaceable format that the audience loved. However, this sort of amalgamation of different match styles of the past had caused matches to end early. Especially with the appearance of such a situation in the finals of the last season, the Alliance was resolute in wanting to change this. In theory, the same thing could happen with the new format. For example, if one team got 5 points in the group arena and then killed 2 of their opponents in the team competition, then the match would end early. However, the probability of this happening was extremely low. In the Pro League, 1 versus 3 was already a very rare event, so while 1 versus 5 might not be impossible, the probability of something that happening couldn't be lower. Anyways, 5 points, 4 points, even 3 points would be highly unlikely in the group arena. After all, the group arena was a fair, one-on-one sort of fight. Getting 1 or 2 points in the end should be the most common conclusion. However, the team competition would be different. It would be easier to gain points in the team competition than the group arena because the team competition was only fair at the very beginning. When the disadvantaged side began to lose players, the gap would grow. The advantaged side keeping 2 or even 3 points would be common. Only 1 point would be less common in this circumstance. Considering all these factors, the team competition wouldn't be affected much if one team could only get 1 or 2 points in the group arena. That meant, with the new rules, the team competition was a heavy deciding factor. However, this was under the assumption that you didn't let down your guard during the group arena. With each part tying to the other, the game's competitiveness and viewership were assured, while reducing the chances of an early finish to the minimum. The Alliance was full of confidence to this new format. The 8 quarter-finalists of the Challenger League would be graced with the chance to be the very first to try the new format out.